Everyone, welcome to Polsinelli. My name is Mike Dolan. I am a partner here in the Denver office of Polsinelli. So I wanted to welcome you all here and just say a big thank you all to coming out to Founders Week. Thanks so much. A quick word about our firm. We are a national full-service law firm. We have about 1,000 attorneys across 20-some offices across the country. We do all sorts of work from helping venture capital backers, helping emerging growth companies, doing tech transactions, intellectual property, employee benefits, M&A, litigation, bankruptcy, you name it, we do it. So, just happy to have you here, and please let us know if there's anything we can do to help you or your companies. All right, that said, thank you for joining us at the 12th Annual Denver Startup Week. Big thanks to our title sponsors, Amazon, Capital One Cafe, Dell for Startups, and the Denver Business Journal. This session is part of the Founder Track, sponsored by CSU Spur, one of 8 programming tracks aimed at sponsoring the entire entrepreneurial team. By attending this session, you're agreeing to follow our code of conduct, as well as to being photographed or recorded on video. Be sure to share your experience at the session online using hashtag DenStartupWeek. With that, please help me to welcome to the stage a 25-year sales veteran, comedy producer, and recovering stand-up comedian. He's worked with some of the biggest names in entertainment, including the Miami Marlins, TEDx, and Live Nation. As founder of Pitch Lab, he's a sales consultant and trainer, helping B2B business owners differentiate from the competition, build stronger connections, and win more deals. Warm welcome for Jay Mays.
Keep it going for Mike Polsinelli, ladies and gentlemen. Awesome job, Mike. All right, let's kick this thing off. Let's say I come into your office and I dump a pile of Legos right there on your desk, and I say, build me a race car. How many in here could build me a race car? Few. Yeah, maybe a few of you could build me something like this. I think most of us, though, would probably build a little something like this. That's it. Still a race car. Exactly. However, if I dumped the same pile of Legos on your desk and I told you, build me the Millennium Falcon, that's what I need you to build me. What would you need? Louder. Yeah, some type of instructions. That's what you'd need. But founders, they're a special breed, right? Especially founders that are leading sales. They're charismatic. They know their product or service better than anybody on the planet. And they intuitively know how to get the ball down the field in sales. But it's kind of an unconscious competence because sales isn't just one thing. Sales is like a dozen things. And you got to understand what you're doing in order to break down the processes, in order to build this for your first VP of sales, in order to build this for your sales team. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Your first takeaway is, if you're a founder trying to break out of sales, you got to put process before people. Stop throwing people at it. That's simple, right? But it's not easy. It's a simple concept, but it's not easy. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So, today we're going to talk about freedom for founders. If you are a founder, how do you get out of sales? When's the right time to get out of sales? What do you need in place as far as the Lego manual to get out of sales? That's what we're going to talk about today. Just a quick show of hands so we know who's in here. How many founders, entrepreneurs we have in here? Okay. Out of those founders who just raised their hands, who is still selling? Okay, cool. And who has gotten themselves all the way out of sales, where they're a founder and they're done selling? All right. That's it. All right. We ready? So here's what we're going to do today. We are going to introduce Natalie and Lauren. I have really good intros for them. We're going to talk about what you need as that foundation to break free. If there's time, we'll do a little bit of Q&A, and then at the end, we can do some networking. Everybody ready? I'm a former stand-up comedian. There is a hole in my heart that can only be filled by applause from strangers. Are we ready? All right, let's introduce our two panelists. Here we go. All right, and I know them both. I've worked with them both. These are two tremendous wonderful, amazing people that put customers first. I'm doing that from the heart, but I also want to do a really good job introducing them. All right, so first, we have the CEO and co-founder of Jollity. Wait, we're not done. I'm building suspense with dramatic pause. Jollity is a web design, development, and management agency that specializes in WordPress. Some of their clients include Colorado Health Exchange, Tara, MSU Denver. She's also a mom of two, based here in Denver, loves to hike, bike, play in the mountains, all the Colorado things. Ladies and gentlemen, a warm welcome for Lauren Perforce.
Hi, everyone. I think Jay said all the words. I have been a business owner since about 2014 and hired our first employees in 2019, and we've been growing ever since. I've been working with Jay on developing more of a sales process, and that's what I'm doing here today.
One more time for Lauren. Welcome. We're very glad you're here. All right, I've never had to do an index card, a mic, and a clicker. So if this, can we edit this out? Chris, where's Chris? Chris left. All right. All right, so for our second panelist, she is the CEO and owner of Volume 9, a digital marketing agency based here in Denver. Since 2006, she's helped hundreds of brands build traffic online, including Backcountry, Volkswagen, Land's End, and more. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Natalie Henley. All right.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. Do
Appreciate
you want to say anything?
No, I feel like that really was really good. I mean, I too have a child and like hiking. I guess I should have added more in my bio about things I like to do. I absolutely cannot build a Lego Millennium Falcon. That's not possible.
All right. Awesome. Let's jump in. So we're going to go to questions now. I'll lead the questions. If you got questions, you can put your hands up. We'll do Q&A later. We'll keep it cash. So when we were doing the practice, getting ready for this, sorry to ruin the illusion of spontaneity. We actually did rehearse this. But when we were doing the practice, we talked about, is it right for everyone, every founder, to get out of sales right this second? And so my first question, Natalie, let's start with you. When is the ideal time for a founder or CEO to remove himself from the sales role? Is there an ideal time?
Well, let me share a story. Because I don't know that that's a perfect, like I couldn't be like, oh, it's absolutely 8 months in. Like just at the 8-month mark, now you know, time to do it. So we're in digital marketing. We sell SEO and content. If you know anything or a little bit about our field, you know that it is a dogfight. There are thousands of agencies that sell SEO and content. And depending on who you're talking to, there's a wide variety of definitions of what that stuff means and what it should be priced at. Early on as a company, what we tried to do was, we were like, we're growing, we know kind of what our pricing is. We know the reasons why you should buy these things. Let's get a sales guy in. And we would just throw stuff at our sales ace. And he would just sort of like go out and like kill the buffalo for us, drag it back to the herd. And we're like, perfect, look at us, we're scaling. We got a sales guy in here. I remember the day because the team kind of complained about some of the sales that he had. And, it's always like, oh, come on, don't blame the sales guy. Not every client's going to be the perfect client. It's not going to be the perfect stuff. And we kind of just, like, hedged it for a little bit. But, like, the day that we're like, okay, obviously we weren't ready for a sales guy, was he went to lunch with a prospect, and he came back with a napkin. And on the napkin, it said that we would do SEO for this client. It just had a couple bullet points on the napkin. He drew some picture that was indecipherable. He signed it. The client signed it. He brings it back and hands it to the team and tells them good luck. And we're like, okay, obviously, and this might shock you, we didn't retain that client very long. And that's the other problem in SEO. It's so competitive. If you can't retain your client past the 6-month mark, you really lose money on them in the first 6 months. So if we're not retaining past that 6-month mark, it's a total fail. And at that moment, we realized that as we were growing, I think to Jay's point, we had thrown people at the problem instead of process. And I think that's when we knew that we weren't ready to have a salesperson and a sales team. So, I mean, I don't know that I have a great justification other than I don't think that you're ready to have a sales team until you feel like you have a process and that there's zero chance that someone's coming back with a dirty napkin that's a contract. Until you have like zero chance that that's happening, you're probably not ready to have a sales team.
Awesome story. And I love how that's the different side of the equation. Not, hey, I've never hired someone, but I did hire someone. She or he is a cowgirl or a cowboy. They're absolutely toxic. They're saying yes to everything. My execution team is going crazy, and I can't hire a salesperson 2, 3, or 4. And my whole organization is being held hostage by this because I did remove myself. So that's another side to the same coin about being able to remove yourself and actually scale.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay, next question. Lauren, when is it definitely too soon to leave the sales role? Like if you're a founder and you're like, hey, I would love to get out of here. I want to go do, right? I want to spend more time with my family. I want to do EOS. I want to work on the business, in the business. Are there any things that you're like, no, it's just absolutely too soon?
At my current size, Jay. Too soon. So we've also tried out this method, and it did not work out so well. Being a web design and development firm, we are very into process. So, anything new that we start to do, we have a process for it. We have an amazing K-base, and our whole team actually uses it. Like, it's that good. Who has like a K-base with your company in here? Knowledge base? K-base?
I was like, that sounds so, I don't know what a K-base is, but it sounds so cool.
Thank you. Yeah, where you keep.
I do
all
not
of
have a
your
K-base,
stuff.
so.
We actually have one, and it's good, and it gets used, and the whole team updates it. Like, we have this really cool system, and everyone's involved. So that's the foundation. We brought someone into a sales role, and he comes to me for training, and he says, "So, what do I do first with a new lead?" And keep in mind, I've been selling by myself at this point for almost 10 years, and I said, and I had no answer. I had no process. I had nothing written down for him. I mean, he really wasn't set up for success right from the beginning. So really what I needed to do first was go through the exercise of writing down all of the things that I was doing and turn it into a process. And before I did that, there was no way that anyone else could step in and fill my shoes, but even if my expectations were lower, there's no way someone could have come in and succeeded. And that did not turn into a successful experience, unfortunately. And it was because I didn't have that process in place. We have since learned. Now we have a process. And I literally now have my entire team. And so we've got 6, 8 people all all selling. And it's not their full-time job, so I don't have a dedicated salesperson right now. But that, from where we were before, where it was all on me, was a gigantic leap. And we couldn't have done it without that process first.
Awesome. I've seen you both do this really well as well. But when we talk about how competitive it is in the website space, in the SEO space, by being in the sales process or even part of it, Natalie, and we'll get to you next on that, it is a differentiator. Prospects that get to speak to the founder, to the CEO in a company that is 8, 10, 12 years old, that gives them a feeling of trust, of confidence. I'm not getting sold here. So tell me how being part of that sales process is differentiating you from some of your competitors.
Okay, so yes, Jay, that's absolutely true. So when you're the owner of the company and you take the time to talk to a prospect and get to know them, part of it is, I think just from the nature of it's my company, I've built a lot of the processes. I've been marketing side in SEO and content and social for a really long time. So I can answer their questions really quickly, and I can give them consulting, and that's just my natural stand. I just like to spend time talking to people, and I think people respond really positively to that. I think as a company, I think there's a moment when you really are going to struggle scaling if you have to be on every sales conversation. So what you have to think through as an organization, and I think this is a big learning for us, is that okay, so the first thing you got to do is how many leads are coming in the door. And then the next thing you got to do is, well, what kind of leads are we getting in the door? And having some levers where it's like, okay, I can't be on 100% of the sales calls. Which ones do we want to have? Like, I know that, just because I own the company, I'm more likely to sell than a director. Not because I'm a better salesperson. It's just the client feels like, oh, I talked to the brass, so I'm more excited. So I know that on the couple that I might hop in on, I've got a better chance of closing. So we go, okay, well, which ones do we want to hedge our bet on? Which are the leads we're most excited at? And then, kind of going at it from that perspective. And I think that as you start to pull yourself more and more out of the sales process, the important thing is that you've got to break it down into more steps. Like, I can go all the way to discovery to closing someone in one call. That's not a fair expectation of the team. So really breaking down, well, what is a fair expectation? What can we do at a consistent close rate? And then know that you're going to need more lead flow to overcome it. So if you pull out of the sales process, you might need a 40% increase in leads in order to feel comfortable doing that. So I think part of it is understanding the math and then understanding, where your close rate is versus your team. So that's why, just really getting comfortable with some of those core metrics. And just knowing that, like, it's never going to be fair to assume that a salesperson's going to have a higher close rate than you. So I think the big thing is just, okay, well, what's a fair close rate? Let's run a sales process considerably. Let's figure it out, and let's see if we can monitor and improve it. And then, sure, if a big whale comes in and we lead score 5 it, sure, I'm going to get on and talk to them and help you close this sucker in. But the flip side of that, too, as you think through that, is that if I don't give my team more control in the sales process, so let's say I do that thing where I get on a call with them and I take it all the way to close, we actually really struggle retaining that client because they got excited meeting me. But I'm not going to be the one talking to them and managing their account because I'm busy talking to other clients and going out and doing other stuff and running a company. So they're going to work with a director. So it's actually, we've realized it's a lot more powerful, maybe not from a close rate, but from a retention rate standpoint, to have more of a duo where I'm on with the director, but the director's doing a lot more of the recommending and the consulting. The client feels like they got some of my personal time, but the person who's saying all the smart stuff is the person who's going to work with them. We realize that even if that brings the close rate down a little bit, we pick it up on the back end because we retain those clients much longer. I don't know if that answers your question or not, but
Perfect.
now I feel like I'm just saying things now into the microphone. So
It
I don't know.
sounded really good.
Okay, great.
Lauren, you want to add anything to that?
Sure. So I think for us right now, we're actually really focused on converting and upselling our existing client base. So it's a little bit of a different situation. And one thing that I've noticed that can be really helpful is that if the like a baby step out of the sales process as the CEO or as the founder and the owner has been to allow the team to take like the first call or maybe the third call, like something along those lines. And then they build the agenda for the second call, and then they start the pitch deck for you, and then you step in later. Like those little steps where you get to collaborate with them as your team grows, it has a couple of benefits. And first, it makes the team member feel really special because they're getting a lot of dedicated one-on-one time and attention with you that they wouldn't otherwise be getting if you were doing this pitch by yourself and you just took it over. Second, they're learning from you. But third, if you then bring yourself on to like one meeting with this client that you're trying to upsell, then they're saying, I'm bringing the CEO to the next call to talk with you. Then the client feels really special too. And that's an experience that can really elevate it, whereas if you were handling the whole sale yourself, you don't have that, like, the client doesn't feel leveled up because you're handling it from start to finish.
And I love how you're both saying the same thing, that extracting yourself from the sales role is a continuum. It's not all at once. What I see a lot is a lot of founders who aren't classically trained in sales or don't have that experience. They think, well, I'm for sure I don't know what I'm doing. For sure I'm missing something. So I need to quickly get out of this role and just hand it away all at once. And that's a huge fatal mistake, is trying to just, especially with no Lego manual, right? Especially with no Lego instructions. But I got to get out because I'm just not a salesperson. It's absolutely wrong. You want to do it incrementally. You want to do it on a continuum, just the way they both explained.
And if you do that, you're going to end up with a contract on a napkin.
That's it. There you go. Okay. There's a couple seats up front here if anybody wants to jump in real quick. Please, everyone is welcome. Everyone is welcome. Come on in. All right. We had a bunch in the doorway. Give them a round of applause for finding a seat. All right. Let's shift gears. Let's talk a little bit about the sales process itself. Start with Natalie again. We talked a few months ago, and you were like, "There's just parts like I don't need it. I don't need scripted. I don't need it to be exact. But there's just a couple of benchmark things we have to hit that we're not hitting." So I just at a high level, what are the steps of the sales process that you're like, hey, wing it, use your EQ, I trust you, you're good people, but you gotta hit these spots?
Yeah. Does anybody else in here do what they would call consultative sales? Okay, so we run a consultative sales process. So this will probably make a little more sense for kind of people who are trying to do that. So in a consultative sales process, what we're trying to do is basically give really helpful information that's really valuable, how to achieve your goals. And by the way, by the time we get to the end of the process, if you'd like to hire us, here's the price point and the value. That's kind of the general gist. As we went through and sort of developed out the process, I remember at one point we had like 50 flowchart steps. That was too many steps. We've now boiled it down to a few, but there's these kind of key moments, right? There's a moment of discovery, and you really can't skip. Yeah, it looked a lot like that. Every time he shows it, I'm like, that's actually the one Chuck made. That's basically what it looked like. And there was like 6 different decisions. It was really complicated. Yeah, there's 5 basic steps, I think. I say 5, but let me go through it. Maybe it'll end up at 5. Okay, so there's like the discovery phase, right, where we got to ask them smart questions. And I think we learned in a consultative sales process that discovery is the first place that you really win a contract. Because it turns out a lot of people in the industry have built up sales teams and they're not good at listening. What they're listening for is the moments where they can sell to someone versus actually listening to what someone's problem is and what they need. So asking really good questions and then being able to turn back and just say back what they said has been really important for us. So we're really careful in the discovery phase not to do too much pitching or recommendations. We're just listening and asking really smart questions. And then it flips to the next phase. So discovery can kind of sometimes take a couple spots. Before discovery, we don't talk to every lead. So, I mean, not everybody's a good fit for us, and it's a waste of our time. But more importantly, it's a waste of their time. Like, again, like it's brutal to talk to SEO companies. So if you're talking to 5 or 6 SEO companies, one of the best things that we get positive feedback on is someone reaches out. We're like, hey, based on what you said, I can already tell you we're not going to be the best fit for you. Hey, you're a dentist outfit. There's a couple companies that only do dentist outfits. This is your budget. They're inside that budget. Like, let me save you some time. Talk to them. We're not going to be a great fit. And they actually really appreciate that. So, but we definitely probably only talk to a third to a half of the people that come in. Somebody wants to just ask a question or ask for advice, we'll always talk to those people. But if someone's like, hey, I want to go through the pitch process with you, we're pretty honest early on. If like, hey, I don't know that you're going to be a good fit. So there's definitely some qualification. So then the discovery, we're asking really great questions. And then the next phase is where we turn around and go, hey, based on the information you gave us, we took some time, we took a look at everything. Here's what we think. Here's where some of the problems are. Here's where some of the opportunities are. And we lay that out for them in a really strategic way. And then we start talking pricing, and then we get to a contract phase. And then hopefully they, usually once we get to the contract phase, if you don't sign our contract within 1 to 2 weeks, it's happened, but it's not very often. You've just kind of made a decision to go somewhere else. Usually that phase is pretty quick. So there's just some things that have to happen in each lead. It either comes into our system or not. Discovery, there's a set of notes that you have to fill in that we just can see, like that you asked all the questions to just be able to tell if this person's gonna be a good fit for us or not. Proposal, there's a physical demonstration of a proposal, usually a presentation, and then a contract. That's the easy one. It does either a contract or there's not a contract, and then close. They either signed it or they didn't. So there's kind of tangible things along each of those. And it's really interesting. Even in, like when we get really busy, sometimes we lose control of the sales. I lose control of the sales process a little bit. So this happened to us back in January. All of a sudden, our close rate just plummeted. Usually, we have about a 40% close rate. That's pretty good for our industry. And it was down to like below 10%. What the hell happened? And I realized that this team had skipped the proposal phase, so the point where we demonstrated what we thought. And they were going right from discovery to contract. Turns out, if you skip a key piece of the sales process, clients won't sign contracts. Weird. So it's really important. It's like we don't need like 6,000 different steps, but we know that if we don't take good notes, it's going to show up later because the client's going to be pissed that we didn't listen to them. If we don't show them strategically what we think, our contract's not going to sound fancier than somebody else. If we don't get a contract for them to sign, they can't ever become a client, right? So there's definitely things that if we skip them, the sales process just really isn't going to work. And that's one of the things as he's putting up the lights, that's what we've really started to do is put in more gates like this. Like, okay, everybody knew that you couldn't skip that, but it was physically possible. Now it's a lot harder to skip that without it being on my radar that someone's skipping it. But that's for us, I think those are the stages of the sales process and what we're shooting for. Was that your question? Did I miss anything major?
Nailed it.
Okay.
Nailed it. And I'm coming back to you for value in every step. Your takeaway, founders who want to get out of sales eventually, exactly what Natalie talked about. What are the steps in your sales process? I have demo there. Obviously, if you're Jollity, if you're Volume 9, you're not doing any type of demo, but it's up there for founders holistically. Discovery, proposal, contract, close. So here is your takeaway. As you want to get out of the sales role, number one, what are the stages that Natalie talked about? What are they? They should be really close to discovery, proposal, contract, close one. There might be something else in there, but define those stages. Number two, exactly what Natalie said. What is the criteria? What do you have to get done in discovery before you have permission to tap my team to run up the cost of sales and get a custom bespoke proposal, an investment estimate? That costs me money. Let's make sure you're qualified. Number three, who certifies this criteria is met? You hire 2 or 3 salespeople, it's on, right? It's the buyer's job to rush you. It is a buyer's job to tell you as little as possible and get you to price as quick as possible. If your sales team is an order taker and they are not consultative, if they do not have these gates, they're just going to push you. So what are you doing to slow it down? What are you doing to control the sales process? Who certifies? It could still be you as the founder, even though you're not running it. And then finally, how do we track this? Where is this ending up? Obviously, I don't want you to stay into a spreadsheet forever. That being said, your first CRM probably shouldn't be something super expensive. So you want to...
Can you go back up one slide for a second?
Of course.
Because actually, this was a really interesting point as you had demo up here. Is anybody here in like SaaS? They're doing demos? Okay, so this is something we've noticed a lot with our demo, our clients who are in SaaS, is they push everybody to a demo because they go, hey, every 100 people that take a demo, I know I can close XYZ, and they totally skip this like discovery phase because they're like, oh, that's the process is we go straight to demo. But the ones that take time to do a little bit of discovery first have a way better success rate coming out of those demos. Plus, they have a lot better chance of getting people into those demos in the first place. Because once you're pushed right into a demo, it's just like, okay, they're just going to do whatever they can to sell me this tool versus, okay, they listened to me and now they're going to show me what part of this tool solves this problem.
Perfect. All right, transitioning. We're still going to stay here, but the trend is a salesperson, and think of this as you're hiring your first salesperson, your first 5 salespeople, a salesperson that cannot provide value, cannot provide insights in the sales process is no longer relevant. For 2023 into 2024, my question, and this is coming to you, Lauren, it's not just, so all the things we talked about here with Natalie is how you protect yourself, how you make sure you're not running up your cost of sales, how you make sure you're getting as much information as possible so you get the insight, you could do the right thing for the client, close the deal, and retain that client. That's awesome. But let's flip it. What do they call it? WIFM? My salespeople, what's in it for me? What's in it for them? Let's talk about what's in it for them. The trend you need to look out for is companies are differentiating by providing value in every step of the sales process for the prospect, whether they choose to buy from you or not. Think about that for a second. Whether they choose to buy from you or not, what is the value in every interaction? That's how you close a killer brand. So, Lauren, I want to ask you, I'm going to give you 2. Can I give you 2 at the same time? Okay, number 1, Natalie said, most deals are won in discovery. How the heck, if you do decide to hire a salesperson, how are you going to make sure that that salesperson is providing value in that first interaction? And then what have you done across each of these stages to make sure it's valuable, right? So this isn't just me talking about me. This isn't just me pitching you, but there's value. Hit any of those you want. That's a double parter there.
So does anyone here sell like consultative services where you're mostly consulting as your product or service? Okay, so I used to see this in the past that even when I was like receiving pitches for consulting for my company, that people would just they would give you like a standard pitch, and then if you would ask like off the wall questions or questions about your own company, they'd say, well, if we want to move forward with that, you have to pay for this, you have to pay to learn this knowledge. Or I don't know the answer to this, so you'd have to pay to get access to our consultant. And we kind of flipped that on its head. And we said, well, actually, how in the world are you going to know that we're better than the other 3 people that you're looking at for websites if we never say any smart things to you? and we try to make you wait and pay first, and then hope that we're smart. I don't know how else you would go about that. So when we first talk to a client, we're trying to do the opposite. We're looking at their website, talking about their company, talking about their marketing strategy, looking at what's working and what's not. And for every client, for example, I'm working on a deal right now that after the initial discovery call, I actually already had an idea in my brain, and because I've been trained now, written down, to all of the things that are really important to them and how they bring in new clients and what the role is that their website has in their whole marketing plan. So then I went back to my team, who handles websites day in and day out, and we built a sitemap for them together. Now you can't, in my industry, you can't build a sitemap for every client because some of them actually do look like that chart thing that he had up a couple of slides ago, and you can't do that for free. But for a smaller client, for example, we were able to do that. And so then we're going to present this beautiful visual of like a finished sitemap that they can tell we went behind the scenes and spent and invested time in to figure out. Coming back, showing them a very smart thing also shows them what we're capable of. It is so much more powerful than a portfolio entry that is already a finished website product for them to actually see, like, here, we built this just for you. See what we can do for you. So that's just one example, and this is an area where it's a little harder to train your salespeople. They probably have to come back to you for a while and talk to you until they gain enough experience to learn what do you provide for different types of clients. I have another one, for example, that after the discovery phase, we got into, in our case, there's no demos, but the proposal phase, they had a very complicated website setup. They had like 4 websites, and they all redirected to one another somehow. And they were on 3 different platforms using 2 different hosting servers. It was a thing. It was a thing. So we built them a spreadsheet, and we figured out like where each one was hosted. We figured out what all their platforms were. And honestly, we needed to do this to do a good job on their SOW, which I did not tell them that was why we were doing it. But I mean, I had to get the information anyway, so all I did was take a little bit of extra time and again worked with my team to make it look pretty, like a deliverable, and we provided that to them for free. Now, if they don't move forward with us, in this case, we close the deal. But if they chose not to move forward with us, what they're going to remember of us is what we put together for them, how much we figured out for them, and that has come back around for us sometimes years later in the past because we've shown them examples of how smart we are, how thorough we are, and that really pays off whether they close the deal or not.
I mean, I thought Lauren said really smart things, so yeah.
Okay.
I don't know that I have a lot to add to what Lauren said. Yes.
I'll have my
Do
business
that.
cards up here. They'll be right behind you.
All right, so let's recap it. So as you're extracting yourself from sales, you have the gates, you have what's in it for you. You also need to lay out what's in it for your salespeople. So let's go through just a quick example. Natalie said lead. If they're not qualified, they're a dentist. The value is, hey, we're going to be a waste of your time. You say it nicer than that. We're not a good fit for you. We recommend this, and this company. That's value, even though they decided not to work with you. Discovery. What kind of trends? What kind of insights, what are you going to be able to arm your salespeople with so they're not just asking questions, but they're able to give insights? This is why it's so powerful to be in founder-led sales, is because you're able to provide insights, trends, things to look out for. Wow, there's a ton of value. Lauren, you nailed this. There's nothing more I really want to say except the huge mistake I see as far as engagement during the proposal phase. If you're going to slides, stop front-loading about us. Here's how many offices we have. Here's how many awards we have. Put that stuff in the back. What you want to front-load is, here's what we heard. Based on what we saw after we kicked the tires, here's some low-hanging fruit, whether you decide to buy from us or not. Exactly what Lauren said. And then by the time you're in contract, if you're doing this right, your close rate here should be 85, 90% because you closed all along the way. These were micro commitments. If you're a founder right now and you're like, hey, I got $600,000 in contract and we got to figure out how to close this, it's too late. You already missed it. You need to be closing incrementally, closing and providing value, getting the buy-in, micro commitments all along the way. So by the time you're a contract, you know that thing's going to close.
I think that's really good. I would just say on the About Us stuff, I know your thought is to put it at the end. We actually put it at the beginning. Here's why, though, because we skip it in the presentation. We go, hey, first few slides is about us. This is what our faces look like when we hire photographers, some examples of clients. Let's get to the good stuff, which is about you. But if you want to get back to this stuff at any point, you've got it. We do that because they never want to go back to it, but then they know it's in there. That way, what happens is otherwise you can hit this natural spot at the end where it's like, I guess we got to talk about our About Us shit now. So we don't do that. And then also, it's really helpful when they're starting to forward that around, because usually when you're forwarding to an executive, like, at least in our industry, what they want to see is the logos. Like, okay, is this a real company? And do they have a big company, lots of people? And do they have the trappings of a trusted agency? So it's right there in the front when they forward it around. But I agree, don't talk about it. So we skip right past it, and then I've never had someone go, hey, now that we're at the end, let's go back to those About Us slides. But that's how we do it.
I love it. I won't die on this hill, Natalie, but I will say,
I know, it feels like you're dying on the
but
hill.
I will say, there's a difference between a pitch deck and a leave behind. So in the leave behind, I would put that forward and forward out. It's okay though. Again, I'm not going to die. I just like to engage up front, right?
Oh.
Let's talk about Legos early instead of talk about anyway.
Okay, well, not to die on the hill,
Yeah.
but
All right.
I have noticed
Pause
prospects.
recording, please.
Yeah, right. I have noticed prospects don't like it when you give them a different version of slides than what you're walking through. So if you start going and they're like, wait a second, I don't have that slide. Why I'm looking at slide 2 and my slide 2 is different than your slide 2. I think it's really small. I don't think it really would actually change a lead too much.
You close a lot. I
You
trust
close
you.
more though. You're
I
better,
trust you.
Jay. So.
We got one question, and then let's keep rolling.
Yeah. Okay, so I like how Jay said rehearsal, like that's what we really did. But what we really did is Jay sent us a doc, and then he basically said try not to answer all the same questions together, and then also come with a story. So that was actually our rehearsal, and then after that we shot the shit for 20 minutes. So
But we've worked together for years, all three of us. So
yeah,
All right.
right.
glad. All right, let's keep going. Let's go to discovery. I'll let you two decide who goes first here, but I want to talk about discovery questions. Let's talk about discovery questions. How are you asking really good questions that show that you're a consultant, right? That show I'm not an order taker, I'm a consultant. So what are your favorite questions to ask? And we could just freestyle this part, and then I have a few slides for takeaways.
I'll go and be short, so there's time for you still.
Okay.
Do we have a deal?
This is against the rehearsal guidelines though. But go ahead.
Fair. My bad. Follow-up questions. So it's not necessarily like a category of questions. It's more that you don't ever want to give the impression that you're just going through a list. Now, what are you actually doing? Going through a list. Fair. And that's perfectly fine. But the list is more like an outline or a set of guidelines that you have prepared in advance. So you make sure that you're covering all the big stuff, like how much money are they going to be willing to spend? How soon do they need to make a decision by? Who do I need to talk to who I'm not already talking to close this deal? And obviously you don't ask them that way, but all of those questions, you got to make sure they get answered. So you certainly have to start with that list. But when they answer questions, then you ask follow-up questions. It has a couple of benefits. First, you're learning much more about the client, and you can use that later in your deck when you're customizing things. But also, it shows them that you're engaged. And that is huge, especially in that first and second call. I've noticed that CEOs, as you can see, case in point, love talking about their companies. So especially if you've got a VP, a C-level exec on a call, ask them follow-up questions. Let them talk about their company. A successful call, in our opinion, when I'm training other team members on discovery, is when they talk 80% of the time, you talk maybe 20%, just enough to ask those follow-up questions and say one or two smart things. That's it.
So this is what I kind of talk to my team about when we go through the discovery process. I'll talk about it emotionally first, and then I'll get into tactically how we organize questions. So emotionally, I always kind of impress it if discovery is when we make or break a lot of these deals, they're not going to remember the questions that we asked. They're going to remember how we made them feel during this process. Do they feel like we're listening? Are they stressed? Are we doing a good job calming them down and telling them we got it, we understand their problem? They're worried that they're going to pump their money into an SEO company that's not going to, drive return on investment for them. Okay, are we asking good questions to help them just understand, okay, well, what is return on investment? So I think a big part of it is in discovery is meeting your team where they're at. So what I actually coach my team on is like, listen, I probably need, really at the end of the day, if I had to just sit down and give you a presentation, I could probably look at your website, ask you 4 questions, and come up with something that's pretty decent. But that's not the point of discovery. The point of discovery is understand what your pain points are, your problems, your concerns, make sure that we're not missing anything major. So we talk a lot about, like, make it feel like you're coming to the doctor's office, right? You're coming to the doctor's office, you think you have a problem, right? 9 times out of 10, your doctor's probably like, you do not have strep throat, okay? But let's go through the process. But at the time, like, if they roll their eyes and be like, I don't think you have strep throat, you're not going to feel like that doctor is paying really good attention to you. So is it a good feeling process? Were we kind and helpful when they got in? Did we prioritize their concerns? Did we ask them a lot of questions to make them feel like they're being really heard? Are we saying stuff back to them to make sure that we're hearing it really well? Are we asking those follow-up questions to make sure we're diagnosing properly? So I think that's a big thing for us in discovery is how we're making our prospect feel the whole time. And then from a tactical standpoint, I think that there's a set of information that we have to price stuff. And I think as an agency, as when anybody gets on a call, we know what those 10 things are. Okay, you want content, I need to know 3 pieces of information. We all kind of know what that stuff is. And yes, to get to the price at some point, we have to ask those. But there's a whole set of business questions that I think a lot of people in our industry skip that help understand, okay, what's going on? Like, what's your marketing strategy? How about you? What's going on with your job? I think the big thing we say is that our client at the end of the day is our point of contact. Like, yes, it's the business, and yes, we want to see the business successful, but our best day is when a client comes back and says they got a raise because we did so good for them. Like, that's our internal biggest high five moment. So it's like, okay, well, what's going to get you a raise in a year? Like, what gets your boss high five? What gets you a promotion? Let's understand what those wins are and figure out how we chart a course that way. So there's a whole set of business questions we ask, and then we also get it really organized. Jay's holding out the microphone like I'm answering too long, but now I'm not going to stop. I'm just going to keep going. So so we have in our discovery notes right at the front, we have a table that just outlines, okay, there's 8 critical things that we really need in the discovery process. And it just helps us, right? And one is just some basics, like, well, what's their website? What's their LinkedIn profile? Like, just to make sure when we're all looking at it, we're looking at the same stuff. And then who are we talking to? What's their role? What do they care about? And we just have some information in that table just to make sure that anytime someone pops in the notes, like, yes, you could dig through and get all the good stuff, but we know the summary of kind of the core of the gist of it. So that's really helpful for us.
Yes, and I actually wanted to keep going. So, and I also know Volume 9 is doing some type of outbound prospecting as well. So it's not 100% inbound.
Correct.
So the question I wanted to, before you went too far, what got me excited is, how does that first meeting differ if it's someone that did their own research, came inbound through the website, versus someone that your outbound prospecting team, they reached out to, they sourced a first meeting? Those can't be the same questions. That can't be the exact same first meeting. So tell me a little bit about that.
So I think the thing to think about is, in a lot of our first meetings, it depends on the client coming in. But generally we'll break it down into 2 different discoveries. We call it a D1 and a D2. And it really helps long-term to have really similar language so that if you're like, oh my gosh, I'm sick today, Richard, can you hop in on a D1? He knows what the heck that means. But for us, D1 is a 15-minute screener. It's, hey, we got enough information that you might be qualified, but we don't have enough to really know if it's worth taking you through this whole process. So we have a 15-minute call, and we're getting to talk to them. Are they brutal? Are they nice to talk to? Do they understand what they need? Are they looking for services? Because sometimes people ask for stuff, and they just don't know what stuff in our industry is called. So they'll ask for an ad, and what they mean is organic social. That's okay. Not everybody has to know what everything is called. And we work a lot in organic social. We really aren't the best fit for ads. So if you're really actually looking for ads, we're going to get you to the right person. So that 15-minute call is just a quick, let me understand what's going on. And so in those D1s, it's really interesting, whether it's inbound or it's an outbound, usually there's almost always, for someone to get on a call with you, there's always a pain point. There's something that triggered the action. Hey, my boss said I had to do this. Hey, I just got this new goal. Hey, I got a new budget. Maybe it's a positive thing. There's something that causes it. So I think from those standpoints, we extract that on those D1. And the point of the D1 is not to pitch, not to give them recommendations. It's to answer their questions if they have some, because sometimes we're like, well, what are your price ranges? And it's like, nothing is more brutal than having to commit hours of time with an agency before they'll tell you the dang price ranges. So we don't do that. We'll tell you right away. We'll just be like, hey, this is about price ranges for companies in your space, and this is kind of what it includes, just to make sure we're in budget and all that stuff. But our D1, I think the most important thing is to think about it as like that person when you go into the doctor's office that's like taking your weight, getting your vitals, telling you it's going to be okay, telling you when the doctor's going to come talk to you. So from that standpoint, it's actually really similar. Because those 15-minute calls, the key is to just talk to them, understand, just some common what the problems are. But what you don't want to do on those meetings is push it to a D2. You really want to go, okay, this is something we can absolutely help you with. I want to get you to an expert. We're going to get this scheduled right away. Or like, hey, this isn't a great fit. So that's where it differs. I think D1s are actually really similar in inbound and outbound, because we're still noticing that, someone's not just like, sure, why not? I have time to spare. Let me talk to you generally about the things that you sell. Even in outbound, there's some reason why someone's agreeing to talk to you. There's some moment in time.
Add anything?
She nailed it.
Thanks, Lauren.
Let's do a quick question, and then we'll wrap this section.
This is great. How would you shift your discovery questions when it's a referral versus someone that's just a cold lead?
Super great question. So we actually have a lingo for that. We call it a D1/D2. So it's if someone goes through, and that's really right. If it's either a D1, a D2, or a D1/D2, which means if you're doing that, you know that you're going to be on this call with an hour. We have no notes, but it's a warm referral, and we take our warm referrals really fucking seriously. We take super good care of them. And we're immediately bringing in me or a director or somebody like that. We're immediately saying, hey, it's worth our time to talk to them. Because even if we get through that 1 hour and it's not a good fit, we owe it to the partner that referred it to give us a whole hour of consulting to this person. And so when the team goes, hey, you're going on a D1/D2, they know what they mean is I got to get through a whole D1 and a whole D2. So my job is to start high level and then dig us in so that we can get to a pitch after this. So that's, and we call it that, and we'll label it on the calendar. We'll actually tell the clients that's what we're doing. And but that lingo and just making it really simple, and knowing what kind of meeting you're walking into is really helpful for the team because they can get their mindset right. Because nothing is more frustrating than walking into a D2 and not having the notes from the D1. Because you know that the client's going to be pissed if you ask questions that we already asked, and now we're going back through it and we didn't take notes. So just even knowing, hey, we haven't talked to them yet, got it, give me what we got, no problem, really helps the team out. So that's how we switch it right to a D1/D2.
Awesome. One more.
Yes. So I do like enterprise sales, and the issue is not that the info gets dropped from D1 to D2, it's that it changes.
Oh, yeah.
We have to talk to like different stakeholders, and the person we did discovery with has completely different pain points than like the CMO. So like kind of what's your thought process on that?
I'm going to have an answer where you can, I'm doing all that talking. Okay, so we have this happen a lot. And yeah, the big ones, they're just like that. So here's the thing is, first of all, hell yes, you're getting up to the next level up. The idea is anybody, ideally in an enterprise sale, anybody who's going to influence a sale, understand their pain points. That can just be really, really impactful when you get to like, well, let me turn around and tell you how I'm going to solve this problem. Because if you can talk to everybody's pain, like if the CMO is like, I don't give a shit, all I care about is return on ad spend. Okay, great. Let me have a slide that talks to that. And okay, my point of contact, what he cares about is the last 3 agencies they hired didn't do what they said they were going to do. So let me be really detail oriented in this contract, so he feels really comfortable that he can go through and check those boxes. So actually, the more information you can get on the different stakeholders, the better. So if it's that you're just getting new information, that's awesome, because that's key data to have, and just keep it organized of like, okay, this is this person and this is their pain points and this is this person. Now, in a situation where the information is, we had this actually, where the information was actually changing. Every time we got on, we would spend an hour with them, and they would answer our questions, and we'd go and we'd do work for them, we'd bring it back, and they're like, never mind, that's not what we think anymore, now we want to target this. So we went through that process a couple of times with them, and then we actually dropped them. Because it's like, listen, but we cannot help you if every time we go away and do work and come back and do something valuable, you've totally changed your mind. This is going to be a terrible, like, you guys have got to get set on what you want to sell and who you want to target, and like you've got to get some of this nailed, or you got to be okay with us helping you find it out. But you're not ready for a strategic partner if the information is literally, and their brand name was literally changing, what they wanted to sell was changing, who they wanted to target was changing, and the best was they were getting on calls and arguing with each other. And then we couldn't tell who was winning the argument, and we're just like, you know what, guys, this is writing on the wall. We are not going to be a good fit. So I don't know if that's helpful.
Yeah, I would just add, value is different for different stakeholders, and this shouldn't be followed in a linear process, right? So to what Natalie said, if I get the opportunity to bounce around here, do discovery with different stakeholders, exactly like Natalie articulated before I get here, that's great. If you keep trucking blindly, though, that's where you're going to make a mistake. If you're here and then you didn't hear from all the other stakeholders. So I would say it's a good thing. You got to be able to slow down. Sales is not always linear, and where your sales process meets what the buyers need or who wants to talk to you, that's that sales improvisation. As a founder, you got to have the sales process, but you also got to trust your people. So let's wrap this section. We'll go to true Q&A. We're going to get you out of here on time. So Natalie talked about a lot of things that I want to unpack. Number one, when it comes to discovery, there's technical discovery and business discovery. What are you trying to accomplish with your business and the tech stuff? Here's what we need to get things done. The second thing is buyer intent is super important. Where your buyer, where that prospect is at is in their internal process, so you can meet them where they're at. So I'll leave you with 3 magic questions, and this is mostly for inbound leads, and these are business questions. So these are my 3 favorite, and we'll walk through what they are and what's in it for your prospect. This is an easy one. If it's inbound, what recently changed to make this a priority now? This is what Natalie was talking about with need. When you get the answer to this question, you can figure out, is this someone in the organization that's just merely curious, that just read an article and they're just trying to figure out what's going on? Or is this someone that says, my CEO just passed this down in all hands, this is our number 1 initiative, we have to go? There's a little bit different need and different urgency when you ask it this way. You're figuring out your timing and you're figuring out what exactly happened. It's okay if they say, oh, I just saw your blog and just want to talk. That's cool too, right? But it's important to understand that buyer intent because those are 2 different sales approaches. Number 2, how will we measure success? What does success look like? Right? So if you have someone that's brand new that calls in and says, I want to rank number 1 for red t-shirts. Okay, quick, that's a red flag. These are not the right expectations. This is going to be a problem on retention. Or Lauren, someone that says, I got about 40,000 SKUs and I need this done in the next 3 weeks. To be able to understand what success looks like, what are the KPIs, that's how you have an authentic, consultative conversation, as opposed to, yep, we'll do your SEO for you. Yep, we'll do so. What exactly outcomes are you looking for? And the last one, it's not what is your budget, but how. How did you come up with a budget? And why I like this is there's only 2 answers you're really going to get. You're going to get, back to number 1, the budget is earmarked. This is a corporate initiative. I'm looking at you and 3 other organizations. We got to go. Or, you know what? I don't have a budget yet. I got to make a business case. I got to go to the CFO internally, and we have to get this done. Those are 2 totally different sales approaches. That doesn't mean we want to kick them out and say they're disqualified. But again, that sales process is not linear anymore. Now we got to understand what the business outcomes are. How do we quantify the value? How do we get them what they need to be able to earmark and grab that money? Anything you want to share there? Go to Q&A.
I think that was really good.
Okay.
I think you did a great job.
All right, let's do 1 or 2 more. Yeah, go.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I was just going to say, we actually ask all 3 of these questions. We started doing that about 6 months ago, and oh, they're gold. They're gold. There are some of them that I actually thought wouldn't go over well, and I kind of practiced on some smaller leads first, and I couldn't believe the responses. And earlier we talked about asking follow-up questions and showing interest. The one that ends with how does this website, what recently changed in our case to make this website a priority now, is the best one for 2 different things. First, it tells you if you're talking to the right person, because sometimes you'll get the answer of, well, my CMO, my boss told me I have to do this. And then if you ask follow-up questions okay, well, why do they want, and they don't have a good answer, then you know you're not talking to the right person to close the deal. Because you're never going to get what you need to build a good proposal if they have no idea why they're doing it. And the other thing, well, yeah, that one too. But the other thing on making a website a priority now is it tells you if they have a problem that they're trying to solve that's really specific, or if they're just like, we budgeted for a new website this year. We thought we should probably get it done. Like, it's a completely different scenario and next step. And a lot of times it'll be something like one time we actually had a project like 4 months, it was like a year and a half ago before I started asking these questions. I found out 50% of the way through the project that there was a lawsuit pending that couldn't close until the website went live. Now, leading up to this, we'd all of a sudden, the client started making a lot of noise. They were really angry, and we were like, we've been really communicative. This is a very unusual response. Like, we had a good rapport, and then all of a sudden, it was like Jekyll and Hyde. And found out, if we'd have done a good job asking some of these questions in discovery, we never would have run into that issue. And I mean, we literally took a website from 0 to 60. We had to do it in 14 days. And it was a nightmare for everyone involved, and it was our fault. It was our fault because we didn't ask that question before we ever closed the deal. And it turned out it was multi-million-dollar lawsuit. Had no idea. Good thing we have already hired a lawyer to help with our contracts, huh?
All right, actually, in essence of time, I'm going to close this out. We got a half hour to hang out, network. They're here. Let me give you their information, and then let's hang out. So first off, if you want to chat with Lauren more, here's her contact info. Grab your phone. Take a quick picture.
Can I say some nice things about Lauren?
Yeah, go.
Okay, so here's I just want to say something about just a call out to Jolly. So we've been in SEO for almost 20 years. And every now and then we get into website design, then we quickly get out because website design is very, very different. So we're always trying to get in new website designers. And we have different kinds for different price points. But it is very rare to find a website designer that just does things fucking right. She's not cheap. So if a client's like, oh, I got a $5,000 budget, it's like, all right, well, let me pull out the Rolodex of $5,000 website designers. But if someone is just I need this right, that's why I really like Lauren's firm. It's not cheap, but it's going to be accessible. It's going to be fast, all that stuff. So she's who I trust if someone actually wants it to work correctly.
Now you have to say something nice about Natalie.
Just thinking that. I was not prepared.
Here's Natalie's contact info. Grab your phone.
Okay, so I'm not as good on the fly as Natalie is, as you'll find out. I have actually worked. I have worked with Natalie. I have worked for Natalie, and then I've partnered with Natalie on a business level over the past 15 years that we've worked together. Before either one of us had kids, multiple life stages we've been through together. What I love about Natalie is that she's super authentic, and she's brought up her agency to be the same way. That, if she tells you that you're going to get something, you're going to get it. And I swear, she still does client work sometimes. And she's she's way up here. Doesn't ever need to do stuff like that. But she, with Natalie, she's truly someone you can trust because she's really going to do what she says she's going to do. And she's she'll take responsibility for it even when her team is getting it done. If they get too busy, she's going to still get involved, step in and get stuff done.
Really nice. We recorded this. All right.
Wait, should we say nice stuff about Jay? I feel like we didn't say anything.
Last thing here, if you're interested, if you're a founder and you are interested in learning more about our extraction program, it's 12 emails in 12 weeks. No catch. Nobody's going to call you. It's just free content. 12 emails in 12 weeks. And it goes through a lot of the best practices we talked about. Sign up for it. And big round of applause for Natalie and Lauren.
Oh, thanks. Keep it going for Jay.
Hey!
Who lives off of applause from strangers.
That's it. We're going to hang out. We probably have a half hour. We can talk in here. We can talk out there. They're going to stick around. Thank you so much. Round of applause for yourself. Have a great Denver Startup Week.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for the great questions.